Hello and welcome to Janette's TV and Janette's TV podcast. I'm your host, Janette Burke. And today I have with me Lara Plancarte, who is a director, writer, and producer of the movie Mexican Dream. Now, this is a very incredible story about a woman, an immigrant woman named Marlena, who goes to Mexico to escape abuse. She has two teenage children that she's trying to reconnect with. She's trying to build her home and her dream. And at the same time, she has a young boyfriend who wants her to have a child. And in order to do that, she must reverse her tube tie so that she can have IVF fertility treatment. So she's got a lot going on. So welcome to the stage, Lara. And Lara, we're going to dive deep into this movie because it's just filled with incredible content for women and incredible issues in the story and the writing of the story and in the filming of the movie. Why did you want to take this project on? Remember that it is a documentary. It did premiere in Toronto at Hot Docs, but it also won recently in Barcelona Hot Docs. Well, their equivalent, the documentary of Barcelona. It won for best film. So what attracted you to it as a documentary? What were your goals in creating this film?
Well, thank you so much, Janette, for the invitation and for having me here. I'm very, very happy. And so basically, in 2020, well, in 2019, but then it premiered in 2020, I had finished a film that I worked in Montana in the US with a couple. And the couple was struggling due to childhood wounds with some issues from patriarchal issues. And when I finished that film, it was an incredible journey and I loved it. I have always loved all my characters, but I really wanted my next film to portray the story of an empowered woman, and I wanted to return to Mexico, to my roots. So basically, through a friend of mine, I started talking and I said, I'm looking for a woman that can carry this story, that I want to show a different side of the Latin American woman. And we had an idea. So basically, through her and her contacts, we put out like a casting call in a way of people that said, you want to be interviewed by this documentary filmmaker that is interested in finding her protagonist, a woman in Mexico. And I started interviewing many women through Zoom. And the day I met Male, who's the protagonist of Mexican Dream, I knew she was a woman I was looking for. And I knew it not only because she's incredibly charismatic and because, she's a very powerful force, but also I was very intrigued by her story. Like you just made like that summary that in the first interview, she told me that she was a mother of teenagers, but that she had lost custody of her children because her ex-partner was very abusive, but unfortunately, because of patriarchal laws and the situation, she had lost her children. But now that she had fallen in love again, she wanted a second chance as a mom. And the first moment when I met her, she thought about this second chance as a mother as if she could do like clean slate, erase her past and start all over again. And I found that very intriguing. And I knew that obviously this was much more complex to what she was describing in this first interview. And I thought, this is a great story to tell because also it will show a different story from Latin America that is not the typical story that we have seen where like women are more portrayed for the job they do than to the person they are. So then I said to Male, I would love to continue talking to you and that we get to know each other so you and I can decide if we can make a film together. And she also told me, yes, I'm interested in getting to know you. So let's start. And that's how our process started.
Okay, so you got to know her, you got to know her children. And I want to just pick up on something before I go delving into further questions is that this movie, this role, this character, um, she isn't the typical stereotypical Latin American woman that is often portrayed in TV and movies. It's actually breaking down that stereotype. It's also breaking down the stereotype or showing a woman in like a very feminine role, the the mother, like all these things that this woman is trying to balance and put together, which is a very difficult thing to do. But she also, as I was given to understand, was her children fought her, right? They weren't accepting of her, but yet they did come around and they decided to be part of the film. So how was that? How was that to get them on board?
So basically, when she and I started working together, she wasn't in contact with her children. The problem was that her ex-partner was the typical abusive story where he beat her up, he didn't give money, all those things. So she needed to go from her rural town to Mexico City to work as a domestic worker in order to send money for her children. So what happened is that the family of her ex-partner, her ex-husband, took advantage of the situation and poisoned the kids, telling them that their mother had abandoned them, which obviously was a lie because she was in Mexico in order to be able to, Mexico City, to send money for her children. So at the beginning, her children didn't buy into the situation that they were, being fed by the dad and the family. But as time started to pass, when Male would go and visit them every 15 days, that it was what her job allowed her, her children started to reject her. And that for Male was very frustrating because obviously, she was doing a huge, a huge sacrifice, going away, working away, sending the money home and having them not being able to realize the whole situation. So unfortunately, one day, she got drunk and she made like a sort of scene in her her ex's house with the grandparents from her, from the dad's side, and it wasn't like, yes, so it wasn't like a big thing, but unfortunately they called the police got her and they put her in jail for 2 nights. And that's how the father found the excuse to take custody away from her. So she lost custody at that point and she felt very embarrassed. And she tried to search for her kids, but her kids felt embarrassed as well. So they rejected her. And this was brutal for her because she thought, I have made all these efforts. I mean, he's a drunk. He has beaten me. He doesn't give money. And one time I get drunk, I make a scene, and that's it for me, And she was, but at the same time, because of how society works, she was embarrassed. So, make the story shorter, she kept on working. She fell in love with this new partner that you mentioned in the beginning. And she said, I'm going to finish my house. I'm going to build this house for me. And I'm going to have the life that I have always dreamt of. And if it cannot be with my children at the moment, I'm going to have a new baby. And that's when I met her. But when she and I started working together, we had these 3 times per week Zoom sessions, and she started talking. And obviously, I told her I'm no therapist. I was quiet and I listened to her. But what happened is that she heard herself, that what is usually happens when we talk out loud. She heard herself talking and she realized that she already has children and that she actually wanted to fight for her children. So then, as we started working together, is when she went and looked for her children and fought for her children to reconnect and tell, why are you rejecting me? This, the story. And she fought for them. And slowly in time is how she got them back, because now her children were a bit older. They could have a vote in court. So they voted that they wanted to be with their mom. And that's how she regains custody of her children. And at that point is when I met her children. And I remember really well that the first time I interviewed Giovanni, one of her sons, I hadn't asked him any question and tears were rolling down his cheeks. And he was not 15 yet, very young. And I realized that he was very vulnerable. and that he was very hurt by all the situation. And I felt, something, maybe doing a pure observational documentary is not going to be good for these kids, because the mom has signed up to make the film with me, and she wants to make the film, but this, her children haven't, and they're accepting to be in the film because she wants to make the film. So I wasn't completely happy. And Male also was uncomfortable because she also realized that, probably putting her kids and her relationship on camera that way, it wasn't going to be good. So I said to Male, why don't we do things in a different way? So she and I, by that point, we had been already working together for 2 years. And I say, why don't you and I sit down and think about the discoveries, that we have found about you, about your story, your life, the things that have happened that we have captured on film. And we talk about it and we make a decision of what are we going to bring to an audience and what you don't feel comfortable with. And ask your children, and we do a stage of the whole thing, and we film it all, and your kids get a chance to be able to reenact all of those times where they actually, rejected her in the past, when they didn't want to talk with her, all of that, when she would be constantly looking for them at their school in order to find the opportunity to talk to them, and said, let's reenact all this. And this way you have, and your kids have control on how we're going to show and tell your story. And obviously, Janette, this is obvious, for some people, this is not conventional documentary, but I think documentary is growing and is changing. And for me, it was really important to be able to tell their story in a way that it wasn't going to be harming, but it was going to be empowering. And it made a huge difference. I'm very happy we took this route, because that's how Male became co-writer of the film with me. So she, in a way, is very different to be caught on camera than to actually step in front of the camera and to act a form of yourself and to tell your story. And that's how we made Mexican Dream.
Okay, so now that we understand all that, I do have a couple of other questions, some of which you kind of touched on, but the fact that she was having this child with her second partner, I don't think they were married, and they are building a life and a home, but the partner made a demand on her that if she was not going to have this child, and remember, she had to have her tubes reversed that were tied, she had to have IVF, because I guess there was an age difference between her and the partner, to do this. And he had made a demand on her saying that if she did not do that, their relationship was over. What does that send? Like, what does that say? And what kind of message is that giving out? I know this is a story of empowerment, and I know she's able to build her dream and get her family under one roof. But other women watching this story, looking on this, I mean, one might say, well, she left an abuser that had in a patriarchal system that seemed to call all the shots. Now she's with another younger man who seems to be doing the same thing.
Yeah, I think it's very good what you are mentioning, Janette, because she is, let's put it this way, she's with a man that is less abusive in the situation, that he's not abusing her physically, but as you say, our audience can see, well, why is she in a relationship where she is accepting a man that is demanding, if you don't do this, I will leave you. And basically that's what happened in the process when we were making the film, is that at the beginning she was happy with the demand, but as time passed, she said, I'm calling the shots, I'm changing my life, I actually already have children, and if you want to have a child, it's not going to be with me. And that's how she leaves the relationship, and that's why it's a story of empowerment, because at the end, she's able to quit her job in Mexico, finish her house, do the business that she always wanted to do. And she reconnects with her children. And yes, she's single, but she's happy being single. She's happy, having friends, doing her life and making her own decisions. So she starts the film with her partner. And then as the film evolves, she changes.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, so what you're saying is she got into a place in her head and her mind and her heart where she directed her own life and decided, yes, this is what I want in my life, and this is not what I want in my life. And she wasn't allowing the new man or anybody else to tell her what to do in her life. So that's where the empowerment comes in. So, do you feel that women around the world who go and see this movie, what are they walking away with? What are they learning from this movie and from the lead character? You say it different than I did. I pronounced it Marlena. I think you say it differently in Spanish, but the lead character is
Yeah,
Marlena.
no.
How do you say it? Marlana or something like that. That is. We want to know what they're learning from her and her decisions.
I think there's many things to learn from her. And I think one thing that the audience will see, obviously, is that it is a realistic portrait in the way that, as you mentioned, the film starts and she is being, in a relationship where a man can't, actually threaten her. And unfortunately, that's a reality of many women. So it's not like the Hollywood thing where everything is smooth. And so she needs to get out of that. And I think what the audience, one of the things that they can take from the film is that at the end, you can make your own choices. It's not going to be so smooth. It's not perfect. Her relationship with her kids, as you have seen in the film, is not smooth and perfect. Nothing is. It's a complicated relationship. She and her kids have gone through a lot. So obviously, she has gained back custody of them, but they have ups and downs, and it's complicated. And for her to end her relationship with her second partner, it's difficult. It's a difficult situation, and to be able to, be in life and say, here I am, I'm going to do my thing. Obviously, some days you feel lonely, some days you're happy, some days you're not. But I think what the audience will get from her is that even if sometimes you're a bit upset, there are times where you actually are happy and you can enjoy life and you can take, as she does, she grabs life with both hands and she goes and move forward. And there's days where she's sad and there's days where she's high and she's having a good time. And I think that's life for all of us. And for me, I think the example is that she is able to just move forward and carry on. She doesn't get stuck and say, well, poor me, this happened to me. Well, I'm staying in this same place. She moves on. She says, tomorrow is a new opportunity. I'm making my business. Tomorrow is a new opportunity and I'm finishing my home. And I think also another thing that the audience can take is that I think in the film, the friendship and the support by other women and from groups and things, I think is very present. And I think is that idea that, yes, life with a partner is very sweet, well, sometimes, but also friendship, enriches our lives and gives us a lot. So I think in a way, for me, one of the biggest learning experiences through Male is that you can choose to be happy, even if you have lived difficult circumstances. And I think sometimes, I don't know if it's, you're born with a certain chemistry like she does, that, she's able to look at the bright side of things and some people can't. I'm not saying everybody is built the same, but what I think is that it shows that it's possible to live difficult things and then to change and to choose something different.
Mm-hmm. And also to escape poverty because she came out of poverty.
Mhm.
She escaped abuse, right? And basically created the life that she envisioned, the life that she manifested, right? So, what is the business that she was able to create for herself?
So she made a business, like a shop where she sells sweets, like makeup and things, accessories for women, um, children's toys, all different sorts of things that she comes, like sees that, for example, okay, now in town there's a gap for this, or she's always searching for new products. So
Okay.
she built her house, and in the front side of the house, because it's in the same plot that her parents live. So she has her house, and now in the front, she has like a little shop, and then she sells all sorts of things. And
So I gather she's back in her hometown. She's no longer in Mexico City, and
exactly,
she's able to sustain herself
yeah,
and her children making income from this small shop because she sees, I guess, she captures market share. She sees what's missing in the market in this little town, and she puts it into almost like a general store, is what you're describing, that has all these things for these um, for the town folk to come and get when they don't want to go into the city. So that's what she's doing. She's filling that niche. And her
yeah.
children are with her now. They're supportive of her. They actually maybe even work in the store.
So basically, she has three children. So her oldest son didn't want to go with her. He's very resented. So he's not with her. But her two children that appear and that we talked about in the film, so Fatima and Giovanni, they live with her, and they sometimes help in the shop, and both of them also sometimes do other types of jobs. So when you're talking, can she, support herself with the business, is she can, because also she doesn't need to pay rent because now she owns her own house, which is a big advantage. And between all of them, yes, they are able to, live, a life in the town.
A comfortable life, and she's also showing her kids that she isn't exactly what her ex-husband and her ex-in-laws portrayed her to be, that she's actually, been through a lot, but she's come out the other side, and she's an entrepreneur, and she has a lot to show for it. Now my next question is, how is she received in the town, based on the fact that her ex-husband and her ex-in-laws portrayed her so negatively, and there was that shame of her being arrested that she had to deal with, but also her kids had to deal with. So how is that all smoothed over now?
So I think it's like, they say small towns, big hell, but at the same
Yeah.
time, this was now like maybe 8 years ago. So the town has forgotten because there's new things happening. So I think the situations is people will always talk, but I think she has learned that exactly people will always talk, people will always have something to say. And she's very charismatic. So also she's very loved because she's a person that always promotes things. So she obviously has her own shop, but she's into many different sorts of businesses. Sometimes on Saturdays and Sundays, she puts a stall of food outside in the street with a cousin of hers. And then she's involved, as you've seen in the film, she knows perfectly well how to, you know, make what we say in Spanish carnitas, which is this dish made from pork meats, and she knows how to kill the pig, kill the pig, take the skin off, prepare the meat, sell the meat, all of those kind of things. So she's a woman of many trades. So she's involved in many of the activities and many of the things of the town. So even though there's gossip and things like that, because also she's not a stereotype of the town, because she does her own decisions, she said, okay, I'm leaving the town, I'm coming back, I built my house, now I have my business. So she's not the typical woman. So there's people that gossip, but at the same time, she's very loved by many people because she gives jobs, she pushes economy in different ways. She loves to host a party. So she's kind of like a very much like a godmother sort of figure in a way, because she's full of life.
Okay, so my last question to you is, and I think this is also really important, is that this movie showcases a Latina woman, right? And you've made a point of saying a couple of times that it's she's not that typical Latina woman. Why was it important for you to showcase her this way as not the typical Latina woman? What does it mean for you to see this in other forms of art, whether it's TV or film, both in Mexico and America?
Yes, well, that's a very good point. And obviously, for me, it's very important because I am a Latina woman.
Mm.
And it's sad for me to see that we are always portrayed yes, sometimes as very hardworking, but very like miserable. We are crying a lot. We are not happy. We just suffer. And more when you see women from working class, very or impoverished backgrounds. They're always portrayed more like a job and not like a person. And I find that very sad because it's like it's like if they lose their own individuality. So for me, it was important to show because, of course, there is these some women in Latin America that are submissive or, you know, suffering or don't want to have a loud voice or whatever you want to say. But a lot of women in Latin America were not like that. So I was tired of seeing this portrayal of us again and again and again in films done in the US or in Mexico or in other countries that we're all always come out like that. And I can tell you, I'm not, I think the majority of women in Latin America were not like that, or a big chunk of us were not like that. So that's why it was important for me to show a woman from Mexico that is empowered, that has a voice, that knows how to have fun, and it's not unrealistic. It's not like a Hollywood version of a story that we want to show, but it's real.
Mm-hmm. So I think that is a good point that, I mean, for example, Netflix has a lot of shows from Mexico on there now, and you see a variety of Latin American women being portrayed. Some are, very high educated from well-off families. They are running corporations, CEOs. So you see that, but you also see it in America with people like Jennifer Lopez, who is, a Latina, she's also a businesswoman. She wears many roles and hats, and she's a good example of that too. As is Selma Hayek. She's also a good example of a Mexican actress who wears many hats and has, more of what you're saying, shows that stronger side and the decision making side, and the side that is not dominated by a man, a patriarchal man, or living in the worst circumstances or the worst type of poverty with no education, no hope out, and you can only be a domestic and has to be dominated, and abused, and sticks around because they have no other way of earning money. And I think that that's what you're trying to say, and I think that that's important, that for other Latinas, both in Latina America and uh, Latin, like, I mean, South America and Mexico, there's a lot of Latin people around the world that need other women that need to see themselves in this role, that they can be more and they can do more and they can have more. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, that's a fair assessment. Yes, I would love for people to see that, yes, we are much more, and that you can take, you can make your own decisions.
And you can make your own life. So now we need to know where we can go to see this film. Where is it? I mean, I know you're on the documentary film circuit, the different festivals, but can we find this online? Where can we go to see this film?
So we're actually, yes, right now in the festival circuit. So we just got an offer for distribution in Spain. So that's thank you so much. No, I'm very happy. So the distributor in Spain promised at least 60 cinemas. So it's going to have theatrical release, plus it will be broadcast and in VOD in Spain. And I want to make, hopefully, fingers crossed, this sort of deal in other countries. And for me, the experience of Toronto was to be able to see that the film speaks to not only a Spanish-speaking audience, but I think it's universal because it touches subjects that are about femininity, about motherhood, about what a woman needs to struggle with, as you said in the beginning, when you become a mother and you also need to work and you have to work different hats and you don't want to lose your identity. So I think this is a story that could go into many other countries that not necessarily speak Spanish. So my idea is to be able to, through this festival circuit that up to now it's going really well, because as you say, Hot Docs is a great platform. Now in DocsBarcelona, we won Best Film. So the film will continue and hopefully we will get the film distributed soon in Canada and the US and many other countries.
Okay, so the film is Mexican Dream, and I want to thank Lara for being with me today. I want to thank my lovely audience for being with me today. Please remember to like, comment, and share all our posts with your family and friends. You can find us everywhere. We have the TV side, the internet TV side, and the podcast side. We are on so many different platforms, and you can find where to watch and listen to us. The complete list will be in the show notes, along with everything that Laura has said. I will link everything there. So thanks again for being with us. And until next time, continue to be fabulous. This is Janette Burke, your host, signing off.